What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be watching this video. I was obsessed with Japan, but I chose China. I swear to God, if you just swap out the country names, this would make for a perfect friggin' entire season in a Chinese traditional costume drama, okay? It's always this type of three-way shit, except it's not like that type of three-way. It's like triangles of love, okay? But anyway, this guy apparently, he's ditched Japan, he's moved over to China. I don't know why, these two are basically the same, you know? China, Japan, what's the difference? Time to start a war in a comment section. Okay, so for those who don't know, obviously, like, China and Japan, they've always been the best of buds, okay? You know, they love each other so much that sometimes they just want to hang out in each other's territory.
I spent years obsessed with Japan. I even lived there for 6 months, but now I live in Chongqing, China, and honestly...
How did he say that? Chongqing.
I even lived there for 6 months, but now I live in Chongqing, China.
Okay, well, he doesn't speak Chinese yet. Let's just leave it at that.
And honestly, this feels like home more than Japan ever did. So, just like a lot of you...
I always wondered that, like, if you go move to a country, maybe he's in the process, okay, I'm not saying him in general, but, I would never be able to feel like I was at home in a country if I had not yet started to at least learn the language of that country. I would always feel like an outsider. Now, obviously, you're white, and if you live forever in China, you're always technically going to be visually an outsider, but, you know, your boy Evildea, he's the type of guy that inserts himself into every circle, whether the circle wants it or not, so I just shove myself in there, just get in, okay, type of thing. But like, yeah, I would feel weird if I hadn't started learning the language. And I think if you're living here, the first thing you would learn is how to pronounce the name of the city that you love.
Probably watching this. My first, I would say, gateway or exposure to Japanese culture was through anime or video games. But where I think things really took a turn for me and when I really became obsessed with Japanese culture was around 2009 when I played the video game called The World Ends With You, which took place in Shibuya, Tokyo. And
as is Japanese, let me know down in the comment section.
This game really exposed me to what you could consider modern, youthful Tokyo culture. And it was just like this whole brand new world to me, and I just became obsessed for years. And really a lot of it stemmed from this video game, which is kind of funny to say now, but really that's the truth. So I grew up in a family where we didn't really travel all that much, with the exception of 1 or 2 trips to the States when I was a teenager.
Oh, my family, they traveled all the time. In fact, we moved city every 2 years because my dad was a builder and apparently he followed the work. I'm pretty sure there was other reasons for why we were moving constantly. Not all above board, but we moved a lot, but it was always within Australia. And I remember growing up, my dad would be watching TV and he would see Ireland on TV and he'd be like, one day I'll go there, I'll see the mystical land of Ireland. Because to him, Ireland is that magical land. Far off, it's got the Celtic gods and all that type of stuff over there. So every time he'd see Ireland on TV, he's like, he'd just have like a tear in his eye. He's like, one day I'll see Ireland. I don't know why Ireland, okay, because he's from New Zealand. Like, what made Ireland so special? But to him, it was his Lord of the Rings, okay? Don't know what Ireland's got to do with now I'm saying it like him. Chongqing, China, okay?
So because of that, in high school, I made it my goal, a very passionate, very strong desired goal to travel to Japan as my first real big trip. So finally, in the year of 2017, I had been working for about 3 years at this point. So I had saved up a little bit of money and finally I was able to travel to Japan for the first time. And when I traveled there, I totally fell in love to the point where I actually went back to school to get my bachelor's degree so that I could legally work in Japan so that I could move there.
I'm guessing he was working as a teacher, an English teacher. That's usually how people do it to China and Japan.
So now fast forward to March 2020 and I finally moved to Japan. Not only traveled there, but I actually moved to Japan. I landed a job there as an art director. Which was an absolute dream at the time, especially considering that a lot of foreigners get jobs there as English teachers. So achieving this, it was really like, it felt like a life-changing thing for me at the time. So I lived in Japan for about 6 months in 2020. And of course, as all of you know, 2020 was during the pandemic.
Hey, let us all know down in the comment section, where were you when it started to like explode? Or at least when you first heard about it. I was literally in Taiwan and we would see the news about some new thing happening in China, and it was like spreading, and there was lockdowns. It was all so confusing, and then suddenly everyone's out there buying masks, and we just watched as our plane prices. Okay, so we had return tickets to Australia, okay, but we were to return in 3 weeks. And we were hearing about this fucking epidemic starting to spread rapidly, okay? At this point, it hadn't quite got international, or at least we weren't aware of this. It was like literally a week or two after news of it started to break. And we had to wait 3 more weeks before we could fly back to Australia. Well, we're not going to wait because we heard about possible border closures and stuff. And the plane ticket prices just went boom, 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 up through the roof, okay? Suddenly what you would pay normally for like $1,500, it was like $5,000 for a single direction. Everyone was fucking fleeing, man. I was ready for the zombie apocalypse.
For personal reasons, I had moved back to Toronto. I believe it was at the end of August 2020. So I only had roughly around 6 months in Japan, but it was enough to gauge what it is like to properly live in Japan. So the plan wasn't always to stay in Toronto. Once I returned to Toronto in August 2020, it was kind of just a step back. And I think for me, the plan was...
Sucks to be you Toronto people. That's a step back from Japan. Who wants to go to Toronto?
Still to return back to Japan once I have resolved those personal issues that I had. But, you know, because of the pandemic, it was kind of just like this sitting situation of just like, when are the borders going to open? I don't know. So around 2022, when Japan opened up its borders again for work visas, and then later in the year for tourist visas, that would have been, I guess, a opportunity to return. But I was actually hesitant to return around that time. So at this time in 2022, my freelance career was pretty much doing better than ever.
What's he do, freelance-wise? Doesn't say what he is. The reason I was curious, guys, is because a lot of Chinese YouTubers, or YouTubers who basically show their life in China, the way to make money is to work for the government, okay? To get some type of thing like that. He's too small for that, I think, at least at this stage. But I was kind of curious.
Stay in Toronto for a little bit more, save up some money, and then eventually work my way back to moving to Japan with a substantial amount of savings. But honestly, I was also questioning whether or not it was truly Japan that I wanted to move back to, or if it was simply just the experience of living abroad. I had other options. I had other cultures I've explored and I was interested in, such as South Korea. But at the time, to be honest, I didn't have mainland China on my radar at all.
You know what's a really weird place that I'm suddenly, as of recently, having a great desire to go visit, which I never had before in my life? The US. Do you know why I suddenly want to go to the US? It's because I've been watching so much dreaming Spanish stuff, okay? So much Spanish content input that these guys always talk about what's happening over in the US. This, that, you know, talking about the culture and stuff over there. And they talk about it almost in a reverence type of way. You know, like it's like really fascinating to them and interesting. And that's kind of rubbed off on me. And now I'm like, I want to go see what the US is like. Obviously, it's basically just Australia with guns and less kangaroos, but like, still, I'm now kind of curious because that's where all the disaster movies happen, and yeah, you know, I wouldn't mind being part of a disaster movie.
Because in all honesty, it didn't really have the best reputation in the West. But it was also around this time where things took a really big turn and change for me. So in 2022, I met my now partner and girlfriend, Lulu, which a lot of you know. And she is from Chongqing, China, which you can see right behind me here. And she showed me a side, or let's say a variety of sides of China that I honestly just did not know existed. Up until meeting Lulu, I was honestly ignorant, for the lack of a better term, or to be honest, maybe that's the best term. I was ignorant, and she really opened up this world that I just did not know existed.
Get ready, my man. Get ready. Next thing you know, Lulu will be convincing you to go back to Toronto. She'll be convincing you that the in-laws need to move in. Be convincing you that you need a better job. Be convincing you that you're not good enough. No, I'm joking. I'm letting a little bit of personal stuff rub off there. No. But it is a bit of a culture shock, okay, being married to a Chinese woman, because I am 15 years, okay. Actually, more than that now. It'll be 16 years come February. But anyway, it's like, it's it's very different culturally. The expectations within a relationship, that is.
I had no idea how culturally diverse China was. She'd tell me interesting stories about China. We'd watch Chinese travel videos together on YouTube. She introduced me to real Sichuan food for the first time. I also met her friends from mainland China, and they were super nice and super welcoming. It was also around this time when I started to listen to Chinese music for the first time. I really like metal music, and I discovered a whole world of metal music I didn't even know existed. And just overall started to really research, Chinese culture, Chinese art, Chinese history, all of the above. And truly, I owe that to Lulu for just opening up the floodgates for me and challenging me on my ignorance. So I actually want to rewind back to...
It's a really interesting way of saying challenging me on my ignorance. Like, to me, ignorance is... Okay, maybe this is a different perspective to, like, a Canadian who he is, okay. Ignorance is not only lack of understanding, but it's like almost being proud of having a lack of understanding, or be like, ugh, I don't need to know about that. Maybe that's just an Australian perspective on it. But like, let's say I go to like Egypt, okay? I'm not going to say, oh, they, showed me my ignorance or whatever. I'm just going to go, hey, I learned about the local culture. They taught me things I never knew before, because I'm not walking in there like I'm fucking Mr. Big Head. I know everything. It's a really interesting way of putting it. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it just throws me in like this type of thinking that, was he walking around going, I know everything about China, but realistically, oh my God, my brain has been opened. I was so ignorant. It's just, that's the type of like feeling it gives me, but that could be an Australian perspective.
2017 for a moment. 2017 is actually the first time that I went to this mall called Pacific Mall. It's in a city right next to Toronto called Markham, and it's a Chinese mall. And this was the first time where I was like, okay, there's like this hidden world that I don't really know about that's different from this Americanized Chinese food that I grew up with.
I'm very curious if he's going to talk about some of the other aspects. Like, for example, I've gone to malls, obviously, in China, and the last time I went, the biggest shock for me was the fact that there was multiple floors from like, so you got the first couple of floors, okay, they're all open, they're bustling, but then there's like 5 or 6 floors above that, completely dead. No one. The economy has completely... It's gone, skis, okay. So, like, at the moment, they're going through a lot of economic issues. There's shops left, right, and center closing down. And I like to point out that stuff because that is so different to pre-COVID when I was there. Everything was just going off. It was like the heyday of China type of thing. And right now, it's like, what happened? It's freaking economically deserted type of thing. But, like, I'm curious if he's going to point that out.
This deeper Chinese world that I was exposed to. It's the first time I tried Xi'an Rojiamo, for an example, or Xi'an cold noodles.
Oh my God, the way he said that. So, was that Zhao Jiamo?
No, it's the first time I tried Xi'an Rojiamo, for an
Yeah, that's what he was trying to say.
example, or Xi'an cold noodles. And something there really clicked with me. It really vibed with me. And it was probably the first time I actually questioned my obsession with Japanese culture and whether or not, Japan is the place that I actually want to move to. Well,
you got a girl now. Like, why would you go to Japan anymore? Unless you're not planning for the long term. See, that's the difference with me, okay? Like, once I got a partner... my thinking always was, once I got a partner and I like that one, I don't want to look for another one. That one's mine. I'm keeping it. There's all other plans in the future. Doesn't matter. This one's happening.
Still brushed that off, and I ended up moving to Japan regardless in 2020. But now let's forward back to 2022. Lulu and I were sitting on my couch and we're watching travel videos. And then I saw this one video suggested to me. It was a city walk in Chongqing. And Lulu pointed this out as her home city, which she had mentioned before. And so I click on this. And this was the moment where I was like, holy shit. I could not
been to all those places, by the way.
Believe what I was seeing.
So still, the economy here is still very, very good, but you will see the fraying of the edges pretty badly around some of those areas.
This massive, colorful, and vibrant modern cityscape. Absolute massive city.
There was 2 things I was thinking when I was here last, okay? One was, Yeah, it's actually a fucking beautiful city in a lot of ways. It's really nice. It's terrible to try and navigate. Oh my god, the GPS freaking just dies, okay? It's beautiful at nighttime, but the first thing I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Like, look at all these lights. And the second thing I thought was, it fucking sucks to be a bird here, bro. You'd never get a lick of sleep. You'd just be like, can someone turn off the lights?
And I was like, holy crap, we've been lied to our whole entire lives type of moment. I had no idea a city like this existed outside of Tokyo, Shanghai, or Beijing. And when I was told that there are many other cities like this in China, I was like, I don't know anything. I absolutely.
Okay, this must be some type of Canadian thinking or something, because like even here in Australia, we know China is it's technologically quite advanced. It's big. You talk to the average person on the street and they'll be like, yeah, China's... Maybe that's because we've got a massive Chinese immigrant community here or something. But even my parents are like, I want to go to China, because my mum's actually traveling to China for the first time ever, guys, in about a month or so with me. And she wanted to see the technology and stuff because she'd seen about it on the news. But maybe this is a Canadian perspective. Kind of strange, though.
Absolutely do not know anything. It was honestly this complete shedding of ignorance. And it was truly the pivotal moment. I can still remember it to this day, where I truly felt like, wow, the world is much bigger than I thought it was. And it was from here where I was really challenged on, things or conceptions that I had in the past. For an example, like there's certain things that I thought were originally Japanese, and Lulu would challenge me and show me, in fact, no, these things are actually from China. Example is like, like matcha or mochi, or even the kimono, things like that.
Okay, so basically the cultural fucking debates that happen. This sounds like fucking in Australia how we're always debating with the New Zealanders over who invented the pavlova cake, okay?
Over the years, she just continuously challenged me on these things. And I said this earlier, but she really opened up the floodgates for me on this whole entire new world. I feel like I can truly owe it to Lulu for abolishing my ignorance.
Bro, is Lulu holding you hostage? Is she like standing behind the camera with a gun saying, tell them everything you think? And you're like, hey, Lulu, open my eyes. I don't know why, but this seems so weird in some ways. Like, it's hard to explain. This is not, like, obviously, this is not how I would talk, okay? I'll just tell you, like, yeah, she showed me some shit I didn't know about, which is fucking sick, bro. Like, I learned about this stuff over here or some cool-ass food. But, yeah, it's odd. I feel like someone needs to go check that he's okay, and Lulu hasn't done him in.
And I just really hope that other people can have these types of holy shit moments like I had, and just a total humiliated moment of, I'm wrong. And from this point onwards, it was really continuous moments like this that made me realize that my connection that I'm building with China is much deeper than what I had with Japan, and that the relationship I had with Japan was actually much more surface level than I had originally thought. My obsession with Japan was honestly based more on novelty, on it being different, you could say. But my connection with China was feeling much deeper. It was feeling more authentic. And in a sense, it felt like it was being more true to myself because of the way that I just vibed with it. It's almost hard to put into words, but that's really how I felt and how I still feel. And because of all this, Japan was never going to be home like the way I thought it was going to be growing up. I really feel like over time, I just really got along with Chinese people more. I really got this friendly vibe from them, these deeper connections with them that
Well, I don't know how it is with Japanese people. We've debated this and spoke about this in the comment section before. Yeah, you'll get along with Chinese people great because obviously you're a foreigner. You're going to present something of interest to them. You're a novelty in a lot of ways. But that's awesome because you can use that and then you can actually build proper friendships and stuff. But I think you're going to have to learn Chinese if you really, really want to, learn the culture, get into it. because otherwise you're just going to get a surface level translation from your partner.
Was honestly lacking from the short amount of time that I lived in Japan. I mean, to be honest, 6 months isn't actually all that short. That's still half a year. And during that time, I had a very hard time making connections with people. And some might say it's because of the language barrier, but living in China with the language barrier, I'm embarrassed to say my Chinese still isn't that great. But even with the language barrier here, I still have a much easier time of making legitimate friends, not just surface level friendships. And what I'm about to say might not be the experience for everybody, but from my own experience, when I tried to make friends in Japan, it really felt, as I said, surface level. It felt like a lot of the times people just wanted to have a foreign friend, or somebody to be acquainted with that they could.
Bruh, that's what they want in China. They want a foreign friend. Now, you can grow that into something more. It's a great icebreaker, but that's why they talk to you the first time, okay? It's just like, oh, this guy's from Canada. Is it really like that over there? Do they actually eat babies in Canada? Like, they just... Do they, guys? Let me know.
Practice English with. But in China, the friendships that I'm making, they just feel much more deeper and authentic. And this is still despite the language barrier, which I'm working on. I also feel like I was in denial of how much I liked Chinese food over Japanese food over the years. And this was even going all the way back, to 2017 when I first went to Pacific Mall.
I remember the first time I ever had some Chinese food, because I'm a country boy from Australia, and we don't generally have Chinese food out where I was growing up. They do now. They got little Chinese shops everywhere. But, like, when I was growing up, I think the closest I got to Chinese food, and I remember telling my wife, obviously, girl I knew at the time, she was asking me, oh, what Chinese food you had? And I'm like, I've had Mongolian beef. And she's like, that's not even Chinese. And I was like, it's not? And then, like, since I met her, I've never had Mongolian beef, okay? Like, I've had, like, everything else, and some of the foods that he's mentioned right here are fucking amazing. There's one thing that China does do well, and I'm sure Japan does it well as well, but, like, they've got so many unique food cultures in China. And I specifically love the more northwestern dishes that are, like, really meaty, got lots of noodles. Oh, I want some right now. I'd love to have a zhoujam or dapenzi, all that type of stuff. Oh, yeah.
Always claimed that Japanese food was my favorite food, but I think deep down, I felt like I always preferred the flavor of Chinese food. And then
bro, you seem like you're setting yourself up to be a government agent. The way you're doing this, like, you're like, oh, I love this about them. I love that about them. You sound like every white guy who's selling China in China. Fuck me dead. I'm not selling out correctly. I could be making so much more money, bro.
When Lulu introduced me to the variety of food that exists within China, not just Sichuan food, but food all around the country, I was just completely blown away. And I was like, I can't lie to myself anymore. Chinese food is my absolute favorite. There's just so much flavor packed in all of these different cuisines, so much variety. And this is not just with food, but in general, where Japan is minimalist, I find China can be quite maximalist, which in a lot of ways, I just vibe with that so much more.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. Like, if I compare Australian food to Chinese food, like, for breakfast, we do, like, bacon and eggs, type of thing. And then over in China, you're like, they cut up all these little things and they shove it all together and they create, like, this masterpiece. It's funny because, like, in the morning, I'll go make breakfast. I'll be like... And my wife will be sitting there for like half an hour building out this like amazing thing. And she's like, how can you just eat that? It's just meat and eggs. And I'm like, I'm hungry. That's how. But I'll eat yours as well because that's also nice. But like mine was quick.
I also find myself being much more interested in Chinese history, Chinese legends, Chinese spiritualism, art, a lot more than I did when I had my obsession with Japan. I feel like with China, I really want to explore these things a little bit more versus with Japan. I just had more of, I guess, a fun time enjoying the novelty of everything, but I didn't care as much to go deep into these other things such as history and spiritualism and so on. So long story short, I guess you could just say my relationship with China just feels much more mature. It's less based off of obsession and fantasy and novelty, and just a much more deeper and mature relationship.
I'm wondering if is there a word for like weebs who become China weebs? Like, Is there even a word for a China weeb? Do we have that? I'm sure we do. I don't know. But like, this video was strange. Because, you know, it kind of reminds me, it could be two things. One, it reminds me of like a new Esperanto speaker who comes in with lots of excitement, interests, like they fucking think everything about Esperanto is like absolutely amazing. It's all freaking amazing, you know, it's just the passion through the roof. And then after about a year, they're jaded, green-hearted, and they're like, yeah, man, yeah, we're just... one of these centuries will take over, you know, like, it's just like they lose all of that drive behind them, and then they just kind of go on and become YouTubers type of thing. But then at the same time, there's just too much passion here. Like, even I didn't have this amount of passion. I learned the fucking language. There's something strange going on. Quick note for everyone. This video isn't about Japan being bad or China being better. It's about my personal journey and why China ended up being a better fit for me, okay? The difference between Japan and China. People in Japan will bow 5 times to you when meeting, but you will never know if they are cursing you out inside. Okay? Well, at least in Australia you'll know because we'll just do it to your face. Yeah, no, this was a weird video. This is a weird video. I don't know why YouTube recommended this one to me. Anyway, if you guys have liked this, there'll be a link to the video down in the comment section below. I hope you've all enjoyed the video. I'll see you all in the next video. And remember, if you end up married to a Chinese girl, expectations. Which include you subbing to my channel.